I am Eduardo Betancourt from the podcast Legend Killers, and this is something I'm going to be start doing a little more consistently. These are wrestling related DVD reviews, WWE, TNA maybe, and other promotions most likely. So let's just start off our first one with some WWE NXT, which I got for my birthday. And I'm going to do disc 1, and when I finish disc 2 and disc 3 I will individually review those 3. So I will go down the line of disc 1 and I will openly speak my thoughts, so on and so forth, regarding everything. So disc 1, it started as a whisper, creating the future. NXT Seth Rollins versus Jinder Mahal. Wrestlemania 31, Seth Rollins versus Big E Langston. Chris Jericho versus Bray Wyatt. Women's wrestling is back. NXT Women's Championship, Paige versus Emma. Sami Zayn versus Antonio Cesaro. William Regal versus Antonio Cesaro. Okay, so it started as a whisper. This documentary style interview, whatever you want to call it, this was talking about how NXT was pitched by Triple H to creative about how he could rebrand NXT into the new developmental prior to it being FCW, getting rid of FCW and turning FCW into NXT, and creating the future was the same thing, just going into more depth. And I think it was pretty interesting that they did this documentary style. It was very interesting to see how the training sessions were and how they progress now and stuff like that. So they showed Seth Rollins versus Jinder Mahal, which was a very good match. Next was Wrestlemania 31, talking about how every single star from NXT that came up to the main roster had a match, or every match on the card, with the exception of Sting versus Triple H, had an NXT star at least. And that was pretty cool. And after that, NXT showcased a match with Seth Rollins and Big E Langston, which was also very good. I guess I could kind of give this a pass, but I didn't understand why they didn't go in depth, at least a little bit, on Bray Wyatt or Seth Rollins or Big E Langston. But they basically cut right to Chris Jericho versus Bray Wyatt after the Seth Rollins Big E Langston match. But you know, such is life. I guess I could give that a pass because it was still regarding the topic of NXT's future stars and such. Women's wrestling is back. Basically went in depth on women's wrestling starting in NXT to revolutionize, and I think this gave a lot of good information that I wasn't aware of prior to watching the Four Horsewomen. It was a good way to document women's wrestling. To my knowledge, Paige and Emma were the pioneers of women's wrestling for NXT at least, and I think that was cool to see. I was not aware of that, and the match later segued into Paige versus Emma, which was a very good match. I think for Paige fans, this is a good highlight match for people to watch. I mean, especially for Paige haters and Paige fans, because a majority of people who dislike Paige dislike the character, right? And I think if you get this NXT, I think this would be a good match to prove everybody that Paige is a great wrestler, and same with Emma, because honestly, both of these ladies had to put on a hell of a match. 20 minutes. The next thing, this is kind of where it bothered me, that they didn't go in depth at all about the history, Sami Zayn's history in NXT, being that he was now mentioned as the pioneering soul of NXT in one of their recent episodes prior to NXT TakeOver Dallas. But they didn't go in depth at all with the rivalry of Sami Zayn and Antonio Cesaro. But, you know, it is what it is. I wish that NXT or the network had NXT episodes from 2013, so I could actually see these the history behind this rivalry and stuff. And I think honestly the documentary, this disc 1, lacked that they needed to show some history behind at least Antonio Cesaro, being that he has 2 consecutive matches down the lineup, or you know, Sami Zayn and Cesaro or whatever. But again, I'm not really trying to complain here because it's still a very good disc, and I think Sami Zayn and Antonio Cesaro had a really good hell of a 2 out of 3 falls match. So just like the Paige versus Emma, I think this is a good match to watch for if you're a Cesaro fan or a Sami Zayn fan. It's a very good match. Next we have Antonio Cesaro versus William Regal, which was amazing. I think it was a good way to go out in terms of disc 1. William Regal put on a hell of a match. I mean, he was a little more athletic for his age than I expected. I mean, I saw him bridge out. I remember him putting on a little more of a fight than I had ever seen him put on. Maybe that's just me not seeing enough of William Regal, but I definitely wanted to see more, and I probably will sometime in the future now seeing this match. Same with Cesaro. I think Cesaro has come a long way since this match, especially because this was such a phenomenal match between these two. Career highlight match for Antonio Cesaro, and I believe this was William Regal's last match, so a career highlight match for William Regal likewise. So that concludes the review of Disc 1. Overall, I think it was a very good way to start out, other than the little nitpicks of cutting straight to the matches instead of going in depth. I saw nothing wrong with Disc 1. So far so good. I enjoyed the lineup. To me, the 3 that really stood out the most were the last 3 were Paige and Emma, Antonio Cesaro, and William Regal versus Antonio Cesaro. Same with Sami Zayn versus Antonio Cesaro, as I messed up right there. Forgive me. Anyway, join me next time for the review of Disc 2, whenever I finish it, that is. And I'm Eduardo Betancourt from Podcast Legend Killers. See you guys.